Our next step is to integrate the designs that you did on the top of your bottle with the Aves Epoxy Sculpt. The paint that I recommend is golden paint. This is a fluid acrylic, and I will add the color names to my materials list in case you want to use similar colors. Anything that's highly pigmented is going to do really well with this next step. So you may want to try and experiment with different paints and even inks. Now sometimes I will paint while the epoxy is still wet, because you can paint over it before it's cured, and I have done that before very successfully. On this bottle, that's exactly what I did. I painted all of this before the epoxy cured, and it's as hard as a rock, as you can see. So you can do that. But I did let these cure, and they are completely dry and set up, as you might say. And the next thing to do would be to start painting them. So the color that I chose is Payne's Gray, and I chose it because it integrates very well with the color of the bottle that I have here, this cobalt blue. And where the epoxy begins and ends is where the strongest part of the color will go for me. And then before the paint really dries, I can just clear off the paint off of whatever I've got embedded here. In this case, it's the pearls. And the blue paint actually adds a little more iridescence to the pearl, so I like that. So basically at this point, I'm going to push the paint into all the little recessed areas that is formed from the epoxy. And I'll go back and just kind of keep a watch that I don't lose those pearls. See? I'm going to bring in a second color just to add a little bit of drama to this. And then the trick here, if you want to get the same effect that I've created, is just to lighten up the paint as you go up the top of the coral. And as you can see, it has a really pretty sort of natural effect as you turn the bottle around. And there are more little effects that you can do to make it more interesting and to give it more of a mixed media look, but that's a good start. So I'm going to set this aside, and the next one we're going to do is the little cluster of amethyst. What I'm going to do is I'm going to integrate the paint into the epoxy. I'm going to go a little bit heavier with the paint. What's really fabulous about this is that this is done without baking, and it's also waterproof, so you can get away with creating some steps and doing some processes that you might not normally be able to do. I cleaned it up with just a wet brush and a paper towel, and voila, there you go. Now on the finial, I can sand this down if I want to where the connection is, and usually what I'll do is I just like the look of rust. So with the same process, I'm just going to push down more of this intense colored paint, and as you can see, it just looks like rust. And really, it just looks like rust. It's so pretty. The last one is the seashell. And for this one, I want to use a little bit of the green. Just for a little bit of a different look. I just went over my cover with some gesso paint. And basically what I'm doing is pushing all of the gesso into the recesses of the stamping impression that I did. Turner paint is also very highly pigmented, but I want to use something a little bit different for this particular step than I did on my bottles. And so I'm going to load up my brush. It's a dry brush technique that I'm going to do, and I'm just going to lightly sweep across the cover in different directions. There we go. Another trick you can do is you can also dry brush just a bit of gesso to give some highlights and unify the top of the coral. So what this does is this just further integrates the connection that you made, and you can almost, if you look here, you can't even tell that you've even put any clay there or epoxy. So what happens is you don't even see the connection. You don't know where it begins and ends anymore, and that is the fun part. If you use tree branches or you use other things, it's really fun to try to match that texture using the Aves Epoxy. As you can see, it all looks very, very, very natural. If you're a sparkly person and you like glitter, you can push some glitter into some of the areas here and call your project finished, and just maybe go on to decorate the neck of your bottle, and that really does it.